Mike Cardano with Roto Experts in the Fantasy Sports Network, here to talk to you about what we learned from Week 3 of fantasy football. And on Thursday, we learned that Greg Schiano apparently was not the problem in Tampa last season. We learned that Matt Ryan was a steal with an overall quarterback ADP of 8, and that all Julio Jones needs is health to help you win a fantasy championship. We learned that playing running back for San Diego is a very dangerous profession, and that those who were on the fence about picking up Donald Brown are now tripping over themselves to do so. Benjarvus GreenEllis, expect a phone call from the Chargers today. We learned that Mohamed Sanu, who has become a relevant fantasy player as a wide receiver with injuries to first-string wideouts in Cincinnati this season, well, he means business when he throws the ball. He's now averaging 34 yards per completion with a touchdown on the season. We learned that folks who were sure Jordan Cameron was going to become an elite tight end this season aren't really sure of anything at this point. We learned that Reggie Bush isn't ready to give up his title as the most valuable fantasy running back in the Lions backfield, especially in PPR leagues. We learned that when the Colts just let Andrew Luck drop back and throw the ball 40 times, well, good things happen. And we learned that Blake Bortles can not only throw the ball, but he can run too. Who knew? We learned that those waiting for Danny Amendola to do something in fantasy are starting to realize that waiting for nothing is a very counterproductive thing to do. We learned that anointing Kyle Rudolph as an elite tight end before the season started because A, he lost some weight, and B, he has Norv Turner calling the plays for the team, well, that was wrong. Something that I maintained all along, even though I was in the minority. And this has nothing to do with him now having a groin issue. He had done nothing to date. Nothing, zilch, nada, nothing. Apology accepted, Scott Engel. Good for me. We learned that sometimes being patient and sticking with your conviction has rewards. Those of you who hung in there with Rashad Jennings after the first 2 weeks, well, you were rewarded. We learned that the Eagles can score 37 points without LeSean McCoy doing anything. 19 rushes for 22 yards and no receptions. It's not the type of McCoy box score you would have expected to see with the Eagles scoring 37 points. We also learned something that I told you last week. Kirk Cousins is a better NFL and fantasy quarterback than RG3, even when RG3 is healthy. So that's actually something we relearned this week. And we learned why you don't bench PPR studs after just one bad week, as Pierre Carson's performance made owners who sat him very upset. We learned that the guy with the most boring name in the NFL, a rookie almost no one in fantasy paid attention or gave any respect to, John Brown, is in fact a viable fantasy option in deep leagues. We learned that those of you who picked up Niall Davis early in the week because you thought Jamaal Charles wasn't going to play were right in doing so, despite reports that Charles was practicing during the second half of the week. So give yourselves a round of applause. We learned that DeMarco Murray deserved to be ranked higher than wherever you had him coming into this season. We learned that what I told you last week was right. Sitting Peyton Manning was not the play of the week. We also learned something that I didn't say. Russell Wilson plus Marshawn Lynch is fantasy money. Now, Sunday night, we learned that my rule to not start running backs against the Panthers kept you from winning. So if you listen to me, sorry about that. And while we knew Antonio Brown was a must-start each week, we learned that you can stop tweeting me the question, should I start Kelvin Benjamin or not? Just start him. Now I have a prediction for tonight's Jets versus Bears Monday Night Football game this evening. This will be either a very high-scoring or a low-scoring game, or it may be a close game or a blowout, depending on what happens. Now if you've got Week 4 questions for me, give me a day or two to breathe, and then shoot me a note on Twitter at Mike Cardano, and I'll see if I can give you some sound advice. Enjoy tonight's game, everyone. I will see you right back here tomorrow on the Fantasy Sports Network.